So, welcome to this civil research seminar. We have this monthly series where we invite research scholars or research experts who are doing research in wisdom or yoga, and they are bringing it in the modern leadership development or management context. And we are very happy to welcome Dr. Sreekumar with us. And thank you, Dr. Sreekumar, for agreeing and joining us today. We are very grateful. And I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Sreekumar to our audience. And let me also share, Dr. Sreekumar, that this seminar will also be available for our viewers on YouTube after some days. So Dr. Sreekumar has 25 years of diverse experience spread across leadership, talent development, academic project management, and consulting. He is currently associate professor and dean at Vivekananda Yoga University. The short form is VAYU. He was the formerly principal Infosys Leadership Institute, and he was head of L&D Leadership Learning and Development at Deloitte US India, and also in UST Global. He has served as executive coach for senior leaders and high potentials at Infosys, and he has co-created best-in-class learning intervention with premier academic institutions. And he was the one was a part of Infosys' growth journey from its employee base from 5,000 to 150,000. He's an engineer by education, turned into people development, and completed his doctorate in yoga and management. He has delivered mindfulness-based interventions at different public sector companies and also private corporate organizations. He was also invited to British Parliament as a member of the Indian delegate to a team on yoga and led by Padma Shri Dr. H.R. Nagendra. He has multiple research publications in yoga and mindfulness at work, and that is a topic where he will be sharing his research and his journey in the research of yoga and mindfulness-based practices and how it impacts people. So once again, a very warm welcome all of to Dr. Sri Kumar, and I invite you to begin your session. We are very excited to hear from you.
Thank you, Dr. Ajinkya, for your kind words and beautiful introduction. My greetings and welcome to everyone, and I thank Dr. Surya and team for this wonderful opportunity to be with this august audience at the SP Jain Management Research Institute, the Center for Wisdom in Leadership, something which is very close to my heart and that I'm passionate about. So really happy to see this igniting mind here. And let me just share my screen for the presentation today. I'm visible, audible, all of that, right?
Yes, okay. Yes.
So today, the topic of today's presentation is the efficacy of yoga-based mindfulness intervention, for especially in the context of psychological well-being in leadership commitment. And what I will share with you is really the introduction, the context of why this study, and also the need for this study in today's world, as well as the literature review, the method, the results, and the discussion around the research study. That's how we will go about it. And at the end of this, we have over an hour. So if you are all interested and willing, I would also like to give you a small teaser experience of the intervention, a small experiential sample of time, 10-15 minutes. Yeah. So on that note, I will begin the presentation. When you look at mindfulness studies, especially in the past few decades, there has been an exponential growth. So this is from American Mindfulness Research Association. If you see this, till 2008, hardly there were less than 100 publications per year. But look at 2020, it is almost more than 1,000 publications every year. And this is only from American research. If you look at the Web of Science indexed published journal, it's actually, as we stand today, it is more than 3,000 publications. So there is really a surge of interest in mindfulness research in the recent decades. And if you look at the first generation mindfulness studies as it is evolved, was mostly in clinic settings. And today, it is moving out of clinic into various institution settings, like probably prison settings, in military settings, in workplace settings, in school settings, and all of that out of the clinic. That's the trend that we are seeing now. But when you look at the studies closely, in terms of workplace, that's the focus of today's discussion, we see mindfulness studies are still at an infancy stage. It is preliminary, it's evolving and building on. And when you look at the challenge of workplace, definitely, as most of us are working professionals, we know the stress is acute, the psychological distress is also a highly prevalent challenge, which is all through evidence-based research also, we see many of this. And there is a clear-cut need, a clarion call to explore new pathways of employee well-being in today's context. So when you look at workplace wellness, 3.2 billion of the world's, as we stand today, close to 8 billion, right, go to work. And an average person spends 90,000 hours working. That's what the estimate suggests. So when wellness is equally important in this case. And when we look at wellness, WHO offers a holistic definition. It's not merely absence of disease, but it is a complete physical, mental, and social well-being. Even ILO defines all aspects of the working life, from the quality, safety, to how workers feel about their organization. All of this. So it's a wholesome perspective on wellness that we are looking at. Let me share with you in this context some alarming trends that this was a study done from Gallup, and they did based on the analysis from data from ILO and WHO and all of that. And it says that the working population is becoming increasingly unwell, significant economic insecurity, and the gap is actually only widening, right? And growing older, less healthy, stressed, unhappy. Look at 313 million annual work related accidents year on year. So these are some concerns. And when you look at workplace wellness, only 10% of the world's workers have access to even wellness programs. That is how it is today. And the unwellness at work is incredibly costly. If you look at US alone, there is 2.2 trillion annual loss, which is 12% of the GDP, whether it is due to chronic diseases and all the lifestyle disorders that are happening. And when you look even at a global scale, it says WHO has given this figure saying that anxiety and depression disorders, mental health disorders alone, the cost is US $1 trillion each year, according to a WHO study. And almost 160 million new cases of work-related illnesses are occurring. So is it not something that we should really look at? So now when you look at wellness and work, there is clearly an interdependence. It's actually a two-way relation. We all know that when we are feeling, it's as simple as that. When you are feeling a bit down, not well, little disengaged, unhealthy, it's just a vicious cycle and productivity is really impacted. But at the other hand, when we are feeling healthy, positive, energetic, motivated, and today we speak about intrinsic motivation, there is a greater joy, a sense of fulfillment that we can derive, a sense of higher purpose at work. Today we are talking about creativity and flow in organization on the positive psychology. So it is like a two-way street. And when you look at some of the global trends today, technological disruption is like we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Yeah, with AI coming in and all of that, the world is being altered at a scale that we have never witnessed in the past. And cut cutthroat competition. It is the workplace dynamics have changed. So much of the millennial population is now there. So we have to really look at some of those trends, yeah, and how the globalization is impacting this, and unsustainable health costs and threats to climate change. All of this, resource depletion, it is all really the macro trend that is affecting at the organization, at the individual level in terms of workplace wellness. So it is in this context that we are calling for a shift, that it is no longer enough that organizations have nice to have programs or even lip service about workplace wellness or even band-aid solutions, as I would like to call it, saying that we have this program or the employee attended this. But what we need is how do we integrate, embed some of these behaviors into how we even do our business. And many progressive organizations are taking lead in some of it. So conversations are moving around to increasing creativity, flow at work, and all of that. In words, thriving at work. That's a small but positive trend that we see. And it is in this context that our study of exploring mindfulness as a potential new pathway comes into picture. So that was giving you the context and introduction of the study. Now, when we look at it from a literature perspective and look at the core central idea of mindfulness, it originates in Eastern spiritual tradition. Yes. So the descriptions of mindfulness as well as cultivating it is seen widely in Buddhism, Indic perspective, all of that. So we look at the centrality of mindfulness and then zooming in, mindfulness at workplace, mindfulness and psychological well-being was one approach. So I have done the literature review from both sides, one from an ancient text perspective, the wisdom-based literature, as well as from a modern scientific literature. And I will share you a glimpse and a summary of all of that. And from a practical intervention perspective, in terms of yoga, a study or technique that was called cyclic meditation, designed at the Vivekananda Yoga University, was explored and primarily looking at mindfulness. Can really this enhance mindfulness in today's context, addressing the challenge? And potential benefits when you look at mindfulness intervention, because we have spoken about the effects of stress and the consequences of all those unwellness. You look at the other side. Mindfulness is scientifically shown to really bring about a wide range of mental and physical health outcomes to cognitive and even interpersonal outcomes. This is one beautiful meta-analysis paper from Crystal published in 2017, which gives some of those ideas. And when you look at mindfulness intervention, we also see there are many components in the mindfulness intervention. It's like a multi-model, multi-dimensional intervention. So we have to also see which component is creating those differential effects. And there is a promising area which says the mindful yoga component. Out of the various components in the mindfulness intervention as of today, the yoga component is giving a significant differential effect. If you look, probably 10% of today's intervention is on yoga, but it is giving 80% of the result. Then is it not inviting to look at that component and really design a probably greater intervention that can lead to better outcomes? And when you study the layout of the land in terms of mindfulness intervention today, the most prominent one, as most of you know, is the mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, pioneered by John Kabat-Zinn, who himself was a student of the Vipassana tradition of Buddhism. So from that, he drew inspiration and then created this. And most of the other interventions are derivatives of MBSR. For example, cognitive therapy was used primarily in the case of depression. Relapse prevention is primarily used for recovering from substance abuse. Relationship enhancement, of course, for relationship counseling. Yeah. These are all mindfulness-centered interventions. And there are other interventions where mindfulness is one component of the overall. For example, in DBT, it is all about borderline personality disorder. So things like that. And there is integrative training where mindfulness is one component of. Given that MBSR is the prominent thing, I just wanted to briefly share that it originated. Remember, we said the first generation mindfulness studies happened in clinic setting. So it was in the University of Massachusetts Medical Center for treating chronic patients that it has started. And it was a duration of 8 weeks. And after that, there has to be a daily home practice of 45 minutes per day. And you have to practice 6 days a week. And after all this, you have to go for a full day mindfulness retreat. This is how it is all structured. And it is multi-model. Primarily at a broad level, you can summarize and say it has three main practices: formal, and there are many informal practices. One is body scan, second is sitting meditation, and third is Hatha Yoga practice, which is those gentle stretching and movement. So this is what is, as of today, the landscape. And the need from scientific perspective is the mindful yoga component, if it's creating a significant differential effect. Can we really look at a yoga-based mindfulness intervention? Yeah. And as a means of providing a unified experience, even when you look at positive psychology, right? We talk about eudaimonic well-being, right? And it is at multiple levels, whether it is at a subjective level, individual level, or even at a group level. So yoga can really bring about a unified experience in this perspective. And yoga already has mindfulness as an inherent component. For example, even when we do an asana, it could say that if you are not doing it with awareness, we are not doing yoga. It is just like a physical posture that you are doing. So it is ingrained into it. And workplace yoga intervention are very limited. And more often, we see that follow-up studies are very limited in today's context. So this study proposed the cyclic meditation as a unique yoga-based intervention for employee well-being. That is for the need from a scientific perspective. Now, when you look at the literature review, primarily I have looked at wisdom perspectives of Buddhism as well as Indic perspective. So in Buddhism, we speak about the Four Noble Truths, which is about suffering as a central tenet. What is the cause of suffering? How do we alleviate suffering? How to reach the ultimate goal? All of that. And it offers the eightfold path towards that. But there is a plurality of Buddhist traditions, various lineages. So when you look at even the definition of mindfulness in scientific literature is a challenge. In spite of this evolving research, researchers are struggling hard scientifically on what is mindfulness, right? So, and for the purpose of our study, I had used John Kabat-Zinn's definition. We'll go into that. That's at a high level. And from an Indic perspective, yoga belongs to the Sanatana Dharma. Buddhism and yoga are like twin brothers, as what Dalai Lama likes to call it. Yeah. So, yoga belongs to the, while Buddhism is all about the Buddhic Dharma, the Dharma is the underlying tenet, what both the traditions stand for. Yoga belongs to the Sanatana Dharma. Okay. And primarily, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras as well as Bhagavad Gita were looked into. Along with that, the 10 principal Upanishad texts like Atma Bodha were all reviewed from a perspective of mindfulness. What is the idea of mindfulness in all of these texts? Ancient times. Because the mindfulness originates in Eastern spiritual tradition. So from a Buddhist perspective, this eightfold path, actually we can summarize this broadly at three dimensions. So for example, it is a dimension of wisdom. It is through right understanding and right thought. And there is a dimension of ethical values, which is the right speech, right action, and right livelihood, all of that. And then there is a dimension of concentration, which is the right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, which Buddhism offers to achieve the ultimate state. And beautiful parallel when you look at the 8 steps of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, the Yama Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Dhyana, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, right? The all leading to the ultimate goal of yoga, which is chitta vritti nirodha, the mental modification. How do we the chitta vritti? How do we? So this offers a wholesome perspective. And when you look at one illustrative, a small illustrative example from Bhagavad Gita, speaks about Naiva Kinchit Karomiti Yukto Manyeda Tattuvit. Pashyan Srinvan Srishan Jigran Ashnan Gachan Sopan Sasan Pralaban Visarjan Grindan Unmishan Nimishan Nabi Indriyat Teshu Vartanda Idi Dharayan. Meaning, while seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, walking, breathing, excreting, and even opening and closing the eyelid, one can engage this with a witness attitude, a sense of non-doership. So the witness, the Sakshi Bhava, is a very prominent theme that we see in Indic literature. And what a beautiful correlation. Like when I was doing the reading, I was seeing a Buddhism scripture which is talking about metta, which is the loving kindness. How do we cultivate that? And there is almost a similar statement, like while walking, eating, sleeping, how do we consciously cultivate and establish ourselves in that divine abode, is what the Buddhist scriptures also speak. So this is one illustrative, like I shared even in Vedasara Upanishad, there is a heavy discussion on mindfulness. Similarly, in Atma Bodha of Adi Shankaracharya, we see a central idea where in one sloka, Swamiji says that how do we engage, be in that witness state where you witness all the activities like the self as a king, witnessing all the activities. So that's the idea from a ancient literature perspective on mindfulness, a glimpse of that. Now, when you look at the modern scientific literature, especially I've gone through a wide variety of meta-analytic studies in this area in terms of mindfulness benefit, right? We have started with the challenge of workplace wellness and exploring mindfulness as a pathway. So, what are some benefits? So, it is significant number of physiological variables, including diurnal cortisol, HRV coherence, any immunity markers. Then it's found to reduce burnout. It is effective emotion regulation. It has a positive relationship with positive and an inverse relationship with negative effect. So all this is today already known. And a beautiful journal of management, I found this as a good reference where it says, how does mindfulness do all of this? So fundamental lever is the attention. Through that attention, it affects the various functional domains, cognitive, emotive, behavioral, and physiological, and thereby leading to enhanced outcomes at an individual level or at an organization level, performance, relationships, and well-being. So attention was the core thing. And even when you look at how do we measure mindfulness, I shared the challenge about the definition of mindfulness. Similarly, measuring mindfulness, there are a wide variety of instruments. So in the study, I used mindfulness attention awareness scale because those primarily focus on how do we enhance attention. So the main programs currently have a focus on stress reduction, and preliminary research in embedding this into workplace appears to show promising results. But MBSR being the backbone of what is today known as the mindfulness intervention, adaptations in workplace have truncated versions of this. And when it truncates, many of the Buddhist scriptures also gives a big warning of this. You should not lose the philosophical underlying essence of why we are doing some of this. So that is also a challenge when we truncate some of this without the full perspective of it. Yeah. And which active ingredient produces what effect is still not known. And very few studies are looking at follow-up effect. After the intervention, what? Oh, you showed some good results, but what about after 5 days? What about after a week? What about after 3 months? When the person go back into the thick of the daily grind, is it sustainable? So we want something that is sustainable. And also with something that is shorter duration. I remember my days with Infosys when I had an opportunity to work with some of the founders, and he was constantly hearing the message, doing more with less. So we don't have time. How can we really do more with less. So with a shorter duration or the minimum dosage, how can you create the maximum effect is the question. At any point, if I am going overboard or running out of time and all that, Ajinkya feel free to flag me off. I'm just in the
Yeah,
flow and just
yeah, no problem, sir.
yeah,
Please
sure,
continue.
sure. So that's the context. And when I look at the yoga-based mindfulness intervention, the intervention that was designed at the Vivekananda Yoga University, we have seen preliminary evidences of that, saying that it can reduce stress, it can reduce oxygen consumption, it can increase self-esteem, and it reduces psychological stress in managers. So, building on that evolving research base, the study taking mindfulness as a central theme, cyclic meditation and mindfulness was primarily examined for this study. So that was the primary aim with mindfulness as a central theme. How does the efficacy of cyclic meditation as a yoga-based mindfulness intervention, how does it enhance well-being? And I did the study in two distinct work groups. One was done on leadership professionals of a large MNC. People from general managers and above pan India were invited to be part of the study. It had senior executives, including a board member who was part of that leadership professional study. And the study two was done in an entirely different context on offshore professionals who are really engaged in a very, very high risk work environment. So just by nature of the work that they step into, they are already highly stressed. Yeah? So, and then the study looked at the follow-up effect of the intervention, which was fine lacking in today's research, and also examine the relationship between some of these variables. How does the mechanism work? How does the relationship work? That was the aim of the study. And we start by really defining what it means. For the context of the study, mindfulness was looked at paying attention in the present moment. So the attention awareness aspect in a very non-judgmental way. And when you look at psychological well-being, I looked at emotion regulation. What do we mean by that? So it is the emotions how people have when they have them, how they experience and express. It primarily has two dimensions on reappraisal of the emotion as well as suppression as two prominent domains or strategies of emotion regulation. And perceived stress is the degree to which how we see, how we appraise our situations as stressful, and also the propensity to experience positive and negative. And cyclic meditation, the format as designed at the Vivekananda Yoga. So this is the contour, and all of these are well researched, validated. Now, just would like to invite your attention to a small aspect of high risk workplace. So there is a lot of literature speaking about the challenges in high risk, which has huge machinery, the risk it poses to the employees, especially in the context of the oil and natural gas drilling. People have to work in ships at the offshore location, which is deep in the ocean, for many days, rather weeks away from family in the deep interior sea. Yeah, with maintaining high risk operations and high vigil. Just to give you a flavor of what it looks like, as I have got it from our participants who've done. So this is one view of an oil platform, offshore drilling rig, which is a large structure. You can explore, extract, store, and process petroleum and natural gas, which in the deep rock formations of the seabed. So it also has facilities to accommodate. Imagine people are telling me just to even reach this platform is a big risk because there are chopper incidents happening. And once the chopper reaches the altitude and when they alight down, the platform there where they go down is very high. Climbing down from there to where they need to be reaching at work, there are many accidents that happen on a very frequent basis. So they need to be very, very highly trained and skilled to even be in this kind of a location. And like we said, accidents are like very common just by the nature of work. And we have seen one platform, and there are extension platforms like a cluster, like a network you see. Yeah, there are residential components and processing platforms, all of that, but they're on board. And there are very frequent gas leaks that can happen. Yeah, as you're seeing in the picture, then fire hazards happen, smokes, and all of those issues. Weather issues happen in deep sea, right? Uh, Alarming waves and weather conditions. One instance where the entire platform collapsed. So it is actually the operation environment in which people are working. So this study also looked at employees in this high risk context. How are they also responding to the intervention? So it was primarily on leadership and offshore. And the study analyzed at multiple time points. After a 5-day full residential intervention was given, and then 3 months of home practice, further examined the relationship between these variables. And the null hypothesis was that yoga intervention will have an effect. We don't know whether it is good or bad or how it affects, but it will have an effect on mindfulness, emotion regulation, positive effect, negative effect, and perceived stress. And the null hypothesis was it will have no effect. And the method that was done, voluntary participation from a large Indian PSU was sourced, two distinct groups. From a leadership perspective, 105 participants, both male and female, reported for the study at a residential university setup. There were 3 dropouts during the 5 days due to personal exigency, and mean age and all of that age range is mentioned here, 30 to 60 years. And what was something beautiful was after the 5 days, because follow up is usually a challenge once they go back and they pick up things and talk about leadership, right? And also these offshore projects. But they felt the benefit is what I am seeing at a subjective level that 83 participants out of them, which is a significant adherence rate, 81.4% provided follow-up data. We looked at how much they are practicing. Is it 1 to 2 times a week? Is it 3 times a week? 4 times? Greater than that? Looked at all those detailed analysis. And when the offshore study, 77, and all of them were male participants, not very surprising given the high risk nature of the job who participated in this. And there were no dropouts, and 61 of them, 79.2%, gave a response rate after 3 months. So, program details are shared, and this is how we source the subject. And previous studies indicated 35 as a sample size, and we used the G power analysis to do that. And to get dependable results, considering potential dropouts and better generalization, for leadership, we ended up with a greater sample of 102, and for offshore group, there were 77. And it was well represented pan India, like from AP, Assam, Delhi, Goa, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Tripura, Uttarakhand. There are participants from all over from this, and they were sent in 4 consecutive batches over 2 months. That's how the study was done. All volunteers, both male and female, were included, and people who could not participate in the full 5 days were excluded. And proper ethical consideration was done. The study details are explained to them much before the thing. Signed informed consent was taken before beginning, and they were explained the rights that they can withdraw from the study at any point of time. And it was approved by the Institutional Ethics Committee Board. So study followed a simple repeated measure design at different time points. T1 at the baseline when they come, T2 after the 5-day full residential intervention, and T3 post 3 months of their home practice. And the intervention as such, when we look at, it was called as SPEC because it was a residential integrative experience that they went through. There were questions, interactive sessions. It also had some kriyas, pranayama, devotional session, all of that. Simple, healthy, nutrient-rich vegetarian diet, all of that. But post that, the heart of this practice is called cyclic meditation. It is a 35-minute practice, and standardized guided instructions are also provided. Daily practice log was maintained. We collected all of that. So if time permits and interested, I will give a short glimpse of this. From an assessment perspective, various instruments like you shared, since attention was the core element of mindfulness, we choose the attention awareness state, and all of these are well validated, reliable instruments prominent in the literature. And the data analysis was done using linear mixed effect model. Even in literature review, it was found that if you have a repeated measures design, especially if it is unbalanced, for example, in T3 time point, there were few dropouts and few missing data, all of that. Then linear mixed effect modeling was advised and used R statistical software. It's an open source thing. And planned contrasts were done using paired sample p-pairs. Correlations, here some correlations were done. But the general trend, in a very, very, very simple layman term, is the general trend is that almost all the variables have shown improvement in the score after the residential intervention, after the 5-day B2, and then slowly the effect tends to diminish after 3 months of follow-up at T3. So statistically, if we look at it, the mean and standard deviations, the descriptive statistics of all the dependent variables for both the studies are shared here. Similarly, for the offshore group, and correlations with 95% confidence interval was done. What we can see is clearly the mindfulness is significantly correlated with uh, perceived stress as well as with positive and negative effects. Similarly, offshore also showed a similar trend, offshore group. And when we look at the linear mixed effects model results, uh, these statistics show the significant change that happened for all the dependent variables for both the studies, and the p-value and the effect size, all of them are done. But for ease of discussion for today, what I have done is just created a simple, the statistics has been converted into this table for easy reference. Okay? So for leadership and offshore, for all the variables, for example, mindfulness as a central variable, if you look, even after the residential as well as the follow-up, look at it, it is showing a significant increase, significant change through the mindful yoga intervention. And emotion regulation, only after the residential change, it was high for reappraisal, but not for suppression component was not high. And I did also qualitative discussions with the participants. It was not published. Probably what I have realized, of course, it is not evidence-based, is that people had completely changed their setting. In a residential setup, it was more like an ashram setting. There are a lot of small things that really bothered them in terms of the comforts that they are used to as senior executives, but they were all very open for the intervention and they probably didn't express some of that. So it led to even questions, can even mindful suppression be a greater strategy? The fact that you are suppressing your emotion, but you are being mindfully aware of your suppression, is it something that is also showing a healthy trend? So, but it needs definitely larger sample and all of that to extrapolate some of these questions further. But significant perceived stuff you can see consistent significant decrease and good effect on positive effect, significant positive effect, all of that in both the studies. Now, when it comes to the discussion around this, definitely the residential setup is very integrated, right? It's an intensive experience that they go through. And in personalized practice with just a guided intervention may not be the best way to do it. So if we have some attention with the supervised monitoring, so maybe it can really enhance the effect of the intervention so that they can also have somebody to touch base, guide, and address any personal clarifications, all of that. Even if all of this is not practically possible, at the best, you can have once a while periodic short intervention, not a full 5-day, a half day, or a 1-day workshop in work setting. Yeah, and maybe once in a year or two, an annual retreat like this can be a significant booster in the wellness, is what coming up in the discussion. And the central aspect of the study, mindfulness, with after follow-up also, it showed significant change. And in the current literature, mindfulness already is shown to have an inverse relationship with negative effect and positive relationship with positive effect. So the study further validated and added on, and similar results are also found in the study. And higher mindfulness practice time corresponds to definitely lower levels of negative effect, higher positive effect, higher lesser perceived stress, all of that, and similar results were found in this study as well. Next, overall, our study reinforces that yoga-based mindfulness intervention is a significant enhancer in this challenge. And the contribution from a theoretical perspective is that the study introduces a novel yoga-based mindfulness, which is currently missing in the thing, where mindful yoga is a small component of some of the yoga. So it's a yoga-centric, mindful yoga-centric interaction. And from a practical perspective, definitely a 35 minutes kind of a practice is something that can be uh, adopted in one's routine and can work. And meditation, if we really look, when we say the word meditation as part of the yoga university in the US, and in the US, when you say, they say it like yoga and meditation. I'm sure Dr. Surya will also revert given his rich international experience. So, as if meditation is something different from yoga, right? Meditation is part of we have seen the 8 limbs of yoga, but primarily people mean it as asana. But in cyclic meditation, it's a gentle movement, it's a gentle body movement, and probably people can focus that much more, and that is where the mindfulness can be significantly increased. With that, deep awareness can be cultivated relatively more easily with this gentle movement. So it highlights the idea, and research says that intervention can be applied at multiple levels, either at the preventive care level or when something really happens. How do we manage the stress and issues, and then how do we rehabilitate somebody with had an adverse effect? And there are various models in terms of how do we integrate this idea in workplace at a scalable, sustainable level. The multiple dimensions that we can look into it. For example, the asset model of workplace well-being, it says in this model that there are many workplace factors which is affecting the well-being. Resources, how people feel about the level of control, autonomy, the work-life balance, work relationships, all of that, right? Your sense of purpose, positive emotions that you are touched with during the course of work. It's affecting the individual outcomes and thereby the organization outcome. So any weak link in this asset model can really take us away from that. So how do we look at wholesome? And similarly, flexible work arrangements can be a significant way in which participants or employees have a greater flexibility. In today IT world and especially post-COVID time, we have seen many of that happening. But people like in this high-risk setting, there are very few options. So we have to look at after they spend a deep immersive 2 weeks in the ocean and they come back, how best can we recharge them? Yeah, then they have a 2 week gap before they go again. And how do we foster a culture at an organizational level is through having institutional policy. So a lot of studies, these are references for any of you interested to just deep dive, and then each of the throws up a line for future research. Yeah. So how do we embrace some institutionalize some of this which can foster such a culture? And how do we even increase the online mode of intervention delivery? These are all promising emerging areas in which we can integrate this with the workplace. And when we do a appraisal of the study, the overall strength is that it introduces cyclic meditation as a novel yoga-based intervention at workplace. The study looked at the follow-up effect, especially after 3 months of home practice. Then the sample size in the follow-up study was healthy with 81% and 79% adherence rate. And it addresses minimum dosage, like in spite of the 8 weeks practice in MBSR, if you look, plus 2.5 hours guided practice, plus 45 minutes daily practice, plus intervention, full day intervention after 6 weeks. We don't need any of that. 35 minutes practice, it can bring about positive results. So the high risk work environment professionals, studies on them have been very limited. So it was a unique business and different nuance that was added to the literature. And look at the limitations, the big limitation. A significant limitation was that there was no control group because getting some of these professional corporate level, it was like I worked very closely with forces and all of that. It was a huge challenge. Finally, at an institutional level, through ONGC, who had that receptiveness, we were able to do this. And then everybody wanted to actually get into the program. So that was a limitation, and the participant self-reported data was used for the reporting and analysis. That was a limitation. And then future research, like it has been done in a very large oil-based company in India, it can be done in different organization contexts at different employee levels for better generalizability. Then different methods of integrating this into daily or weekly activities can be explored, and considerations could be made about how to minimize the dropout, how to maximize the sustainable effect. Yeah. Like we said about a supervised guidance can probably help, and all of that, and more objective measures could be added. I have also extended the study by looking at the cortisol markers, right, which is an indication of the stress level, but it has not been published. Done the data analysis on that. Interesting result. Similarly, the underlying pathway mechanism producing this change could be further explored. I've done an initial mediation analysis looking at how does really mindfulness mediate all this relationship. Because if that is the single lever which is influencing a wide range of psychological as well as mental physiological outcomes, then we need to emphasize on that mechanism. So this is the thing, and in a nutshell, yes, it is shown to be a novel yoga-based intervention. In both the studies, findings suggest that yoga intervention is effective. We started with the hypothesis yoga can affect, and we have seen that it is effective in improving mindfulness, enhancing positive effect, reducing negative effect, reducing perceived stress, and aids in better emotion regulation strategy. And supervised guidance can be of greater help, which can further attention to maintain an environment of sustained well-being even after the intervention. So that's in brief, and these are the publications that come out of the study. All this is available for you to anybody who is interested to explore and see. I also published a paper comparing the mindfulness as per Buddhism and yoga, a parallel and comparative analysis. So a little more theoretical looking into the wisdom base, and then what are we speaking about mindfulness. So those are the publications, and lot of seminal papers in the last 30 to 40 years in the field have been studied from various journals of management, assessment, APA manuals, all of that. So some of the seminal papers were looked at, to referred to bring out this study, and can illustrate your references. And I would like to conclude the talk with a quote from a mindfulness master, which says that to fully experience this life as a human being, we all need to connect with our desire to realize something larger than us. It's a beautiful quote, I personally like. Thought I will share that. And also, we are speaking about Indic wisdom, so none other than a quote from Swami Vivekananda, who reminds us saying that each soul is potentially divine, and the goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, internal and external, by work or worship, philosophy or psychic control, what we call Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, by one or more or all of this. But the end goal is be free. So, thank you for being patiently being with me. I thoroughly enjoyed sharing this with you. That is what I had to share in brief. And before we go into the discussion, if the group is open, because it can spill over, I would be happy to share with you a small glimpse of the intervention so that you can experience a glimpse of mindful yoga when you do how you feel it. Yeah? And then we can.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Okay.
Sorry, sir. May I know the duration and how much time it would take?
Hardly 10-15 minutes.
Okay, okay. Because we have a hard stop at 2:30, but we can
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead with this.
We will definitely be. It is just one step in the process.
Yes, yes.
It's
Sure,
more
sure. We'll
than
be
any
very happy.
amount
Yeah,
of scientific literature. I will. Small experience can,
definitely.
if we have time, 10-15 minutes.
Sure, sure, sir. Please. Yeah.
Sure. Right. Let me stop sharing. Yeah. So first I will demonstrate the practice to you, just one step. So you can just watch me. And then we will do it all together. So at that time, I invite you to just get up from your feet wherever you are. Don't need anything. Just close your eyes and just listen to the instructions. You have seen me once doing it, so you know what it is. And just follow the instructions. That's all. Yeah. And you can share your experience after that. So when you look at the intervention, cyclic meditation, just a brief glimpse into it. It is from the Indic wisdom base Upanishad, especially Mandukya Upanishad. It asks a beautiful question. When we sit for meditation, what happens? What happens to the mind when we sit for meditation? Yeah. In interest of time, I will just share that probably we get umpteen number of thoughts. Yeah. It's called Viksheba. A lot of thoughts come into the mind. Yeah. So we may be thinking about, hey, when is this lecture be over? Are we on time? Will we, whether it is, I'm standing between your lunch, there are important priorities, right from Italy to Upma to rocket to moon, whatever, the mind can go all over, right? Catch it. Work tensions, priorities, things that you need to address. All. Second, the mind can, when you are getting a little rest and slowly coming down and calming it, many times if you have been in yoga session, you can hear a nice musical note. Have you seen this? Like, yeah. So there's a tendency to drowsiness, to sleep. It's a lethargy. So it says, the Mandukya Upanishad says that what to do in these two situations. Lay Sambodhaye. In the state of laya, that drowsiness, stimulate the mind, energize it. And when you are in Viksheba, bring it back to the point of attention again and again in a gentle manner. So that is what the cyclicity is all about. It's about stimulation and relaxation. That is the cyclic aspect of the meditation. And it is more like a moving meditation. A gentle, usually we sit close and do it. So it can enhance awareness. And it has got 8 steps. So we will just do one sample step for an experience. Let's Am I audible?
Yes,
Okay,
sir. Yes.
great. So the idea is you're standing straight, closing our eyes, and I'm gently moving my right hand upward. Yeah, it is 45 degree, then slowly coming to 90 degree. And then I turn my palm to face the roof, and then slowly bring it again upward, 135 degree, and then 180 degree, where my biceps of the right arm is hitting my ears, gentle manner. And at this point, I stretch up as high as I can, as if I am catching hold of the ceiling. And then I gently turn to the left. So I can feel the beautiful stretch as well as the compression. And then slowly come back in this vertical position. Again, lift your hand as high as you can. Slowly come back and coming down. Similarly, we do it on the other side. I hope it's fine. So you can just quickly stand up. In 5 minutes, we'll just do this. So stand up wherever you are, please. If you want to be on video, it will be great. Rather than I being myself, it's fine, your comfort. And close your eyes, tune into the moment. Just observe the beautiful silence, relax, and just close your eyes and follow the instructions. Gently raise your right hand moving up, 45 degree, right hand up, 90 degree. Turn your palm upside down, palm facing the roof, and gently move up 135 degree, rising up 180 degree, the right bicep touching the ear. And this position, stretch your hand as high as you can, as if you are reaching out for the ceiling. Can you try to feel the nerve impulses that are shooting out of your fingertips when you do this stretch? And in a very relaxed manner, continue bending to the left as much as you can. Just wherever you feel the gentle stretch and comfortable. And stay there. At that point, feel the beautiful compression on the left side and the fine linear stretch right from the toes of the right foot all the way to the side to the fingertip of the right hand. Slowly come back 180 degree. Feel the blood flow in the hands. Stretch your hand as high as you can. Feel the nerve impulses shooting out of the fingertips. And slowly come back. 135 degree, 90 degree. Turn your palm down, facing the floor. Continue the gentle movement, 45 degree. And complete on the right side, keep your eyes closed. Feel the blood flow rushing through the hand. Feel the difference between the right side and the left side of the body. The entire right side of the body is now charged and energized. Now, let's do the complementary move. Close your eyes. Gently move your left hand up 45 degrees. Rising up 90 degrees. Turn your palm upward, facing the room. Continue the journey upward, feeling all the changes within. 35 degrees, rising up. Left bicep hitting the ear, 180 degrees. Feel the blood flow. Stretch your left hand as high as you can. Reach out to the ceiling. Feel the nerve impulses shooting out from your fingertips. Continue the bend in a gentle manner to the right side. As much as you can to the extent you are comfortable. Maintain that beautiful pose. Feel the beautiful compression on the right side and the fine stretch on the left side from the toes to the left hand to the tips. Gently come back 180 degrees. Raise your hand as high as you can. Feel the blood flow and nerve impulses. Slowly bring your hand down, 135 degrees, 90 degrees. Turn your arm downward, facing the floor. Continue the gentle movement, 45 degrees, and to the rest position. Your entire body is now agile, relish the beautiful feeling, feel all the changes happening with it. Thank you. Gently open your eyes. You can be in your position whenever you are ready. Whenever you are ready, feel free to be on video as well. If you are comfortable. So hope you had a good experience. You could, most of you, I hope, could enjoy feel the blood flow, nerve impulses, all of that. In fact, with practice, there are much greater depths to which you can go. It look like a simple practice, but the mindfulness awareness can be taken. For example, let us just feel the heartbeat. Yeah, can you just place your right hand on your heart, close your eyes, and feel the heartbeat? Can you hear the beautiful love, 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 beautiful pulsation? Yeah. All of you could hear the heartbeat. Maybe if you cannot, maybe no heart. Yeah, but great. And then similarly, you can feel the pulse. Just close your eyes and feel your pulse. And feel the pulse. You can even do both this together. Feel free to make an attempt and just experience this at your pace. Do this together by, so you can place the right hand on your heart, left hand on your pulse, and just feel the heartbeat, the pulse, the beautiful synchronization of this. These are things that you can experience while doing that much. As we practice at deeper levels, it can take us to the mindfulness. The whole cyclicity talks about the depth of awareness in which that we can go into, as well as an expansion of awareness, depth of perception and an expansion of awareness. Those are the two pillars on which this stands. So just wanted to give you a flavor and an invitation. And I recently had an opportunity to review a program of some Stanford psychiatry as part of an international yoga accreditation. And they were really speaking about, for healthcare professionals, they have introduced a program. They're speaking about daily mindfulness moments. You can just witness your breath, watch your body when you're tensed, where you are getting tense, all of that. So slowly we can cultivate that sakshi bhava, witness attitude, and be relaxed, healthy, and happy. So I'll take a pause here and pleasure from my side, and floor is open. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Ajinkya, I
sir.
hope I was
Yeah.
well on time. 10 minutes.
Yes, definitely. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So the floor is open, and please unmute yourself and feel free to ask your questions to Sreekumar sir.
Hello, sir. So, yeah, your research was on oil and gas industry people. So, I have particularly, like in past, worked with Oil India Limited. So, I could understand that situation there in the rig and also offshore. It is totally different. Although I have not worked in offshore, but still, it's very challenging and chaos. So, I think that is also another. I'm not aware if studies has already been done on such situation because already a lot of research have been done for other organizations like who are continuing to work from office but in those extreme conditions I'm not aware, so maybe that can also be a key point of your study.
Absolutely. In fact, studies are scarce, but there. For example, top of the mind, I recollect a study from UK which was done on offshore 200 installations. offshore installations across 36 countries. They studied the challenge. I highlighted a glimpse of that when we said unique challenges of high risk workplace. Only few studies I mentioned, but it's, of course, it is an emerging stream. But in all of that, it spoke about looking at it wholesome. It is not only providing a physical environment, safe environment, but it is also about looking at all the aspects of well-being. That was clearly mentioned. So you're absolutely right. This is a future area of research. It is elementary stage. There have been few studies done on that.
Yeah. So, and one question regarding the methodology part. So, will social desirability will be an issue for this research? So, I want to learn, yeah, because we don't have any control group, and also I'm not sure if it was a before and after kind of study. So, because you mentioned that you were focused on the follow up, you have compared the study with the follow up results. So your comment on that. So I'd like to.
Yeah, it was the before and after, the baseline before the intervention, plus after the five. That's why we said T1, T2, T3. T1 was before the baseline, T2 is after the 5 days, and T3 is after 4 months. And you're absolutely right. I wish could have made. I tried a different source in terms of snowballing, different kinds of control group. It would have made it very enriching. It is a limitation of the study. But nonetheless, that is why we looked at different time points. In literature today, we don't see many studies with follow-up effect. So that is one area which was focused instead of the control group. But you are absolutely right. That will add to the richness. In future studies, definitely.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
am
have.
unable to hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I have one question. So Shrikumarji, you have worked in industry also for a very long time, and now you're also working as a researcher in mindfulness. So in spirituality research, we talk about different practical implications, and we demonstrate the benefits for individual, and we say that organizations can implement this. But being the expert in industry, what could be the challenges you see which may come in the way of implementing these suggestions? And the second additional question to that is there enough openness in the organizations to conduct these kind of interventions or training programs?
It's a very relevant question, Gandhi, and thank you for asking. I alluded briefly to that in the study. When you look at the challenges in implementation, so I hear you right, the first
Yeah,
part of the
yeah, yeah,
question was
yeah, yeah.
challenges in implementation. Like even though today, even if the 10% of the workplace wellness programs which is happening, sometimes it's seen as band-aid. Oh, you have an acute problem, then can you just address it, go for a counseling and move on. But it is not a sustained scalable because there is the fundamental focus in this. Fundamental focus is about all said and done, it's a profit maximizing business model, right? So the top line, bottom line, all of that. So without affecting that, how do we really? So the priority, so the business leaders, it's a culture shift that needs to happen. And there are organizations, to your second part of the question in terms of openness, there are progressive organizations there, but it's the leadership culture. So it has to start from the top in influencing the culture in a positive way so that it is embraced and integrated where workplace also wellness, employee well-being is a priority equally, more than a lip service. I'm sorry to say that while many organizations claim it, you don't see that in the majority, right? So it's not lip service or band-aid, but where we mean, whether leadership means this as a priority is a big step forward in implementing it. Second, it has to be fostered at multiple levels, like we mentioned about institutional policy. How do we bring in some of them? And it is how do we integrate into the way we do business? Then how do you create a flexible work arrangement, listening to the challenges of the employees, and then so it's an employee centricity that we need to also embrace. Yeah, beyond profit centricity and a balance of things. I'm not saying we should throw away the business. Business is not there if we don't make money, but at a balance thing where people are also at the center of the priority. I think that will help through some of these policies and mechanisms. And literature also talks about doing it at multiple levels, at a preventive level, at a management level. When something happens, how do you do so? Lot many examples are there at multiple levels.
Thank you so much for your answer. So anybody else would, if have any question, please raise your hand or you can unmute yourself. Yes, yes, University. Yeah.
Uh, Dr. Sreekumar, thank you for sharing your study. My
Thank you.
question was regarding cyclical meditation. Uh, what is the genesis of cyclical meditation and why did you choose this particular method?
So the genesis was that it's a yoga research university. Fundamentally, where I come from, the fundamental idea is how do we bring out the wisdom base of yoga in a very scientific way. That's the philosophy of the institute. That's the work of the institute at multiple levels. So a central challenge was that how do we reduce the stress? It was a very common prevalent thing, right? And when you look at many of the lifestyle disorders, the chronic ailments, whatever you talk about it, the root cause is in stress. Today, even in cancer research, oncology research, it says stress is affecting a lot of people. So, can
Let
I
me
just,
just clarify. I think
yeah.
I think that I need to clarify the question. There are various forms of meditations.
Hmm.
Okay, whether we look at the yogic, whether it yogic practice, whether it is yoga nidra or kaya sthairyam or ajapa jap or multiple. Okay, so I've heard cyclical meditation for the first time, and hence I'm asking you this question. What's
No,
the
no,
genesis?
absolutely. Absolutely. It is like any other practice which you outlined. It was uniquely designed by the institute.
Okay.
The philosophy in which all of this is designed is same, like yoga nidra, bringing to a deep state of relaxation. So it is yet another technique in-house designed by the institute. Some of the founders are from NASA and all of that who had this vision. Can we do something in a way that is a very short form, like 30 minutes of practice? How does it in today's workplace, in today's setting? How can people do it in their personal routine? Not everybody has the time and luxury to come and spend 5-day retreats, right? So how do we give something in digestible chunks? In fact, in this practice, there is 1 minute deep, 1 minute relaxation, instant relaxation. Then there is something like a 3 minute relaxation, quick relaxation. Then if you have 5 minutes uh, deep relaxation factor, 7 minutes. So if this 8 steps, it beautifully brings a stimulation, then a relaxation. And in the research, it was found if you do this stimulation relaxation, it goes well in engineering also, right? We first heat it and then cool, then and the strength happens. So it is like stimulation, relaxation. You can go into much deeper level. And to answer one more perspective of your question, we did a comparative analysis of this with other popular meditation techniques. For example, Maharishi Yogi's transcendental meditation was compared. We found that 35 minutes of the practice can give deep rest than 6 hours of sleep. Not, of course, sleep is definitely needed. I'm saying sleep cannot be done,
Sure.
but many of the physiological variables. So it was a inquiry. The genesis to your question was, but it's not widely popular, definitely, like you heard. But it was an in-house inquiry to enhance the wellness, and that is how it was designed. And it was looking at the wisdom. For example, it came from the wisdom of Mandukya Upanishad. This idea, the concept, stimulation, relaxation, and then weaving it all together in a unique design. And then we have experimented it at multiple levels. Some of the preliminary research I've done, I have taken it forward in the area of mindfulness with significant results in two different starkly contexts. I'm not sure if it helps you.
Sure. Sure, that sounds clarified. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe that all the questions are done, and we are towards the end of the session. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Sreekumar ji, for sharing your research and your findings, and also the practice that was very effective. And thank you to all the fellow research scholars, practitioners, and faculty members who have joined this research seminar. This is our ongoing series, and every month, as a part of research seminar series of CWIL, that is Center for Wisdom and Leadership, we invite different scholars and they share their research. So I thank you. I thank all of you for joining us, and hope to meet you again in the next month with a new speaker with some new research insights. So thank you so much, and thank you so much, Dr. Sreekumarji, once again for joining us. It was pleasure having you here.